Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of March 13th, 2023 of the Haverford Township Board of Commissioners, 7 p.m. We will now open our meeting. Mr. Berman, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Gondik.
Present.
Commissioner Forsty Groff.
Here.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Here.
Commissioner Cavender.
Here.
Commissioner Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Wexler. Here. Commissioner Trombetta.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here. Chief, will you lead us in the pledge? Yes. Prior to the start of this meeting, the board met in executive session to talk about a legal matter. I have been doing this job for 18 years, and I couldn't do this job if I didn't find something enjoyable every day that I do it. But there are some moments that are more enjoyable than others. Tonight, our next presentation is an example of that. I have the privilege to announce our Congresswoman Scanlon here in the 5th Congressional District. Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon was elected in 2018 and is now in her 3rd term in the House of Representatives. Congresswoman Scanlon serves on the House Judiciary Committee, House Committee on Rules, and the Committee on House Administration. And Congresswoman Scanlon chairs the House caucuses on access to legal aid and youth mentoring. Congresswoman Scanlon has done a great deal of terrific work for her constituents and is here tonight to describe one particular item that will benefit all of us here in Haverford Township. So with no further ado, I invite Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon to the podium.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me a few minutes to talk with you and taking a few minutes from your busy schedule to talk about our collaboration on the redevelopment of the Haverford Township Free Library. So, free libraries, public libraries started in 1731 when Ben Franklin started one in Philadelphia, not too far from here. And ever since then, they've provided a space for us to have civic engagement, lifelong learning, for our kids to become informed citizens, for us to have fun. I was a bookworm as a kid. My mom was an English teacher, and I even was a volunteer at the checkout desk in my local library before running for Congress. So it was really special to get the application for a community project funding grant from the Haverford Township Library. For the past 2 years, members of Congress have had the ability to direct federal funds in the federal budget to a limited number of projects in their districts. The idea being that Congress is supposed to decide where the money gets spent because Congress understands their districts the best, as opposed to the federal bureaucracy making all those decisions. So we get to recommend a few projects every year. They have to meet rigorous guidelines and fit within the existing budget buckets. But as you can imagine, we got dozens and dozens of requests from municipalities and nonprofits across Pennsylvania's 5th District, which is all of Delaware County, also part of Philadelphia and part of Montgomery County. So we screened them to make sure they were realistic and thoughtful and that they served a diversity of community, geographic, and economic needs. So it's a testament to the quality of the Haverford Township Library project that it made not just the cut with my office to be one of the programs that we recommended, but that it also passed the screening of the House Appropriations Committee, the Senate, and was included in the federal budget when it was voted on at the end of last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing the range of new spaces and amenities that are available. I understand there's going to be learning spaces to support STEM education, lifelong learning, workforce development, entrepreneurship, a youth services floor, dedicated spaces for seniors and those with developmental disabilities, and I understand there will still be books there. So, we know our local libraries now serve just such a range of needs. So it's really great to see you bringing the Haverford Township Library into the 21st century. So really pleased to be here. Thank you to everyone. I understand we have some library officials here too. Thank you for all of your hard work to make this happen. We have a $2 million check. Don't put this in an ATM, but then the money is coming from the appropriate federal budget, and we're looking forward to seeing the doors open in the not-too-distant future. So thank you all for your hard work, and this is a great project.
Yes. Onto the center. What is that? Above the mic. All good here. This way. You guys in.
Hold on, gotta turn the camera on. One more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What, our library official?
Oh, yeah. Come on up.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Great, our library.
Why don't you guys go up?
Yeah, let's go down.
Thank you.
Please.
All right, now let's just put our library. That.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting us talk about it here. This will be great. Okay.
They're gonna cash that check right away, right? Okay. There we go. There we go.
I got one.
Thank you. Mine's like,
Oh,
it's a beast. Thank you.
you're walking out in about 15 minutes.
I find myself doing that too. I just forgot it.
Who cares? We're good with that.
Thank you all. We will move on to our next next item in our agenda, which is a proclamation commemorating Women's History Month. We'll wait till this comes down. Commissioner Cavender?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to read this proclamation in honor of Women's History Month. Whereas the month of March is recognized in the United States as Women's History Month, a time to honor and celebrate the contributions and achievements of women in the building of our nation and in everyday life. And whereas ours is the only nation in the world established upon the profound but simple idea that all people are created equal. And whereas during Women's History Month, we celebrate the countless women who have fought tirelessly and courageously for equality, justice, and opportunity. And whereas we honor women in our community and beyond who have devoted their lives and talents to every facet of society. And whereas we continue our work to advance gender equity and equality, we should celebrate the contributions of women throughout history and honor the stories that have too often gone untold. Now, therefore, be it resolved to recognize Women's History Month and acknowledge that fundamental freedoms are interconnected, that when women rise, we all rise together.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Cavender. Next item on our agenda is the Citizens Forum. First, we will have registered speakers, and then we will have people who can speak on agenda items. I have 2 registered speakers tonight. First registered speaker I know by title, not by name, a representative of the Brynford Civic Association. If you would introduce yourself.
Yep. Good evening, Commissioners, Township staff, and fellow Township residents. Commissioners, thank you for your service. My name's Jake Swan. I live at 522 Oakley Road, and I'm here tonight representing the Brynford Civic Association. I'm following up Commissioner Cavender's comments from the February 13th Board of Commissioners meeting regarding the changes proposed for the polo field. First of all, Brynford is thrilled to see that the township is embracing the prospect of obtaining ownership of the polo field. The community is looking forward to having the polo field become a full-fledged Haverford Township park. Secondly, the Brynford community would like to express its appreciation to the township for assuring us that the process for implementing the proposed changes will be fully transparent and will involve community input at every step. In order to provide community input efficiently, the Brynford Civic Association has established a polo field task force. The task force is made up of 6 residents who live in close proximity to the field. These residents will be soliciting input from the community and presenting their findings to the township. Once again, we thank the commissioners for having the vision to seize the opportunity to welcome a new park into the township's portfolio of green spaces. Special thanks go to Commissioner Cavender for identifying this opportunity and working so hard to make it happen. The Brynford community looks forward to being an integral part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Our next registered speaker is Todd Hall.
Good evening, Todd Hall. I live on Country Club Lane in Haverford Township. The library funding is welcome news. It provides an opportunity to look at library operations, and I just have 2, albeit maybe minor, concerns. Advanced registration is required for Children's Story Hour. I was advised today, and I thank the director for his response to my inquiry. The cap is actually 15 families, so it's a sizable amount, but the requirement for registration isn't done at neighboring Delaware County libraries, so it creates a barrier of the library being open and accessible to everyone easily. Secondly, the library board has been meeting on Zoom, and I was advised that the feedback's been positive. It helps individuals with mobility restrictions to attend, and I think that's excellent and a point that I hadn't thought of prior. But if that's the case, I think it should be a hybrid type event. Open in-person meetings are fundamental to democracy. This is essentially a government agency, given the amount of public funding that libraries receive. In the current setup with the meetings, you have to register in advance. You need to have computer access. If you have public comment, it's read by the board, removing important aspects of delivery from the commenter. There was a controversial event at the library in 2019, and my only point about that was the library board president said it was a celebration of democracy. Another important part of democracy is open meetings without the barrier of advanced registration or without the delivery of the public comment coming through without the commenter's voice. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We will now move to I know, but he can speak when it's time. Not on the list. Wait, please.
I was told I
sit.
could speak now.
Well, not yet. You'll speak when I'm going to invite everybody up at a time when we're now moved to the public comments. So it's quite all right. That was the end of our registered speakers. We now go to our 20 minutes for agenda items. Is there anybody on the left? I always start on the left, Mr. Addis. Anybody here on the left who'd like to speak? Yes.
Good evening. My name's Dory Dowdy. I live in the Merwood section of this township, Haverford Township. Thanks for the opportunity to speak and voice my questions to the board. Kind of new attending a lot of these township meetings, but something didn't seem quite right, so I thought I'd come to ask you questions. I was under the assumption, which isn't always the best way to operate, that when large projects are initiated by organizations, that a budgeting process is done prior to a project being embarked upon. I realize that this Haverford Township Library project, and congratulations on the $2 million donation, has been going on for a long time, but I feel some steps, maybe I've missed them in the excitement of getting the donations. I just wanted to see if I could find out some information. So I went online to the website to find out what documentation has been as far back as 2010, when I could find any minutes for any of the meetings for the Board of Commissioners. And in case I missed it, perhaps a presentation could be given on a timeline of the steps and the planning of the library for when the budget was actually approved, or when it was voted on. It's different things that I don't feel like we've had a lot of interruptions with COVID and everything else that has come on, and there's been stoppages, and I've noticed some things in the meeting minutes saying an architect was selected by the library, and then later on an architect. I mean, it just seems very confusing to me as to how it's been going on for a long time. So backing up just to last October, I think it was the first week, Commissioner Holmes and Commissioner Cavender had thank you for that, the 2-ward sub-meeting in Chestnut Wold Elementary School, wards 5 and 6. And at that meeting, the topic came up about what was the budget for the Haverford Library project. And I don't know if it was mentioned. I was there with some other friends, and we were like, well, we didn't hear it. And I think the person that was asking the questions seemed to drill down and say, well, how is it possible for a design firm to come in when there's no budget to be able to build something without knowing what that budget might be? So unless I'm wrong, and both of you were you were hosting it for us, I didn't hear a number at that time. So that was October of 2022. So I'm thinking, okay, between then and now, we just had that presentation by that other design firm. Was there actually a vote on the budget and how it was approved, or what date that was? Or it seemed like there's a lot of, it's not really clear to me. So that's why I'm coming and asking just questions. And then I guess, as a township constituent, for me, I would like to know, and I'd like to understand how the entire process in a timeline for such a large expenditure, just to be transparent from all of you. So that's my input.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there anybody else on the left side of the room? And I will move to the right. Mr. Addis.
I'm going to stand by the side if that's all right, because I can't understand anything as they face you. So I think I'm loud enough. I couldn't understand a word that was said. So I'm pretty loud.
We need the mic.
The microphone is there, so it
I know,
can be,
but I can't hear.
Well, they won't hear, they hear you.
they won't hear it on TV.
Okay. I have prepared questions. Let me begin by saying that I'm a lover of libraries. I served for 10 years on the board of the Free Library of Philadelphia. So I would hope that people understand that my comments, which will be quite negative about this library, will be understood within the context of someone who is a lover of libraries. I was critical in 2000 and 2021 about the library, and stunned that a library with, quote, soft costs of significant hundreds of thousands of dollars reached the stage where there was a design and it was then turned down by the zoning board, that the left hand didn't know what the right hand, that it could get to that stage without clarity, which is not a very good sign. I'm stunned that 2 more years have gone by, or 2.5, 3 years. and then I've listened, asked some questions at some meetings, and then very closely listened to the presentation, which was a month ago by Mr. Goldsmith and the library director. Which brings me to the modest due diligence that I have done over the last 2 weeks. To the best of my knowledge, we have 21,000 square feet of space today at the library. Talking to commercial builders, they suggest that for an existing building, that commercial space can be renovated for somewhere between $250 and $400 a square foot. Basic arithmetic, if that is right, would say that's a $6 or $7 million for the existing footprint. Commercial builders suggest to me that, I'm told that there's 5,000 incremental square feet that would be added to the library. Commercial builders tell me new square footage should cost in the neighborhood of $500 a square foot. If those were roughly accurate, that would be $2.5 million, so we'd be talking in the neighborhood of $10 million. We've got a $20 million library. I can't, for the sake of me, figure out how 21,000 square feet of basically open space with no new books being added, because I went and spoke to the director. There is no contemplation to add to the existing collections. Spoke to the director, and that is the contemplation. So we're talking about meeting rooms, teen space, computers, new bathrooms, whatever. We're talking about $800-900 a square foot at a moment in this country where we are in financial trouble, to include Haverford Township. I don't mean we're going bankrupt, but there's tremendous financial stress. In 2021, the library that was turned down was $12 million. People casually talk about, we're $20 million now. I find it stunning. Let me go on. I've asked the question, and the left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand is doing. I've said, well, if this is mainly meeting space for after school for teenagers, for groups, we have our former municipal building, which I have driven by many, many times, which is essentially vacant. Why are we not contemplating renovating that in some modest way for teen meeting rooms, for community meetings, etc.? Now, that would add operating cost, obviously, but it would sure be a lot less money than $8 or $10 million, if I assume $8 or $10 million is within the range of a renovation, to add some operating costs for 4 or 5 staff to use that space. 2.2 miles from our library sits the middle school, which the day ends at 2:44. There are a vast number of parking spaces after 2:44, and there's an empty building. Has anybody contemplated doing some modest renovation to seal off a section to allow teens to meet there for study groups, for tutoring, for meeting rooms, etc., in a vast space? Next point, I ask about what are the incremental operating costs for the new library. Spoke to the director, spoke to various people. No one has a number. I spent a lifetime in business. I have never in my life heard of a building being approved where nobody knows what the incremental operating costs will be. That is malfeasance. Malfeasance, I use that word very strongly, to get to this point in a project and not know what your incremental operating costs will be. Next point, I asked specifically about parking space. There are 17 spaces. I live at 380 Exeter Road, which
Mr.
is...
Addis, it has been 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll be one more
we have
minute
the
and then I'll be
advantage.
done. It's important.
Yep.
I live at 380 Exeter. I am equidistant between this library and the Bryn Mawr Luddington Library. I almost never come here because I have to wait to find a parking spot. I ask, how many new parking spots will there be? We don't know yet. We're at this stage and nobody seems to know exactly how many incremental parking spots there'll be. So, life is about innovation, efficiency, improving things. No new books, no knowledge on operating costs, at a stressful time financially to go from a $12 million renovation to $20 million, and people are casual about it. The community, which I've spoken to, not in any formal way, but people, is apathetic. They don't know much about it. It takes effort to learn about what goes on in the township, and I am critical of my neighbors and people who live in the community because they don't know much. But when you ask a person about it, they're shocked, 20 million. I've talked to people, and obviously there's work already going on debt service. So I end by saying bluntly, I think this plan makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Addis. Anybody else on the right side? Yes.
My name's Joe Milani. I live on Annabelle Avenue in Havertown. I will second everything that gentleman just said. I don't know a lot about it, but everything he said makes sense. I have one question. We have that grant that we just got from the federal government. Are there any strings attached to it? Will we be beholden in any way to the government, the federal government, for that grant? I don't like the idea of that happening. They don't have the money either. It's ridiculous. One other point I'd like to make tonight, we just made a proclamation for Women's History Month. Part of that proclamation said something about gender equity. One question now. I know our Supreme Court Justice couldn't define a woman. Can anybody here define one?
Is there anybody else on the right-hand side who'd like to speak? Anybody on the left who's changed their mind and would now like to speak? That concludes our citizens forum for the registered speakers and speakers on agenda items. Thank you all for your comments. To the extent that I can answer some specific questions, I'm happy to do so. Mr. Hall, I appreciate your comment about the limited registration of story hours, but I trust you've raised that with the library, and they'll do whatever they can. Mrs. Dowdy, thank you for your comments on the budget. You are correct that this is a project that has been going on for a long time. Its equivalence, I guess, if we wanted to look at other projects that the township has done, would be this building. Would be our Community Recreation and Environmental Center. We have done our best to follow the same procedures that we did for those buildings with regard to financings, with regard to who our contractors are, with regard to keeping people informed every step of the way. This one does have the disadvantage of having been interrupted by COVID. But it is certainly my understanding, and I will confirm this after the meeting, that we have presented some budget numbers. The last presentation from the library board did that. We have previously discussed and ultimately decided that a renovation of the existing building was better than some of the alternatives that were under consideration, including building over at the Brookline site. And that we will continue to be as transparent as possible in building a library. Mr. Addis, I want to correct one comment that you were just correct a misperception that could come from one of the comments. You expressed some concern about decision and the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. The zoning board and the Haverford Township Board of Commissioners act 100% independently. There's no working out in advance anything that the township wants to do with the zoning board. It has its own jurisdiction and its own decision-making powers with regard to any projects that are required to go before it, and that includes anything the township wants to do that satisfies the requirements of needing zoning board approval. So I can assure you I was no less surprised by the decision of the zoning board than you may have been. But that is not something we can ever work out with the zoning board or get or get advance notice of. They have it will be no different than expecting a court to work out in advance what it was a decision it was going to make about litigants before it. So I just want to make sure the public understands the zoning board is not an arm of this township. We are not an arm of the zoning board. It is an independent judicial body that makes its own decisions. And Mr. Milani, there are, other than using the money for the library, there are no conditions to the federal grant. We also have a grant from the state. Somebody correct me if I have this wrong. 1 million, 1.2 million, straight up 1 million. What's that?
$750,000.
That's a different one. So we have a $1 million RACP grant.
Yes,
right?
we have a $1 million RACP grant, and there's an additional grant for $750,000.
And with the exception of being used for the work in the library, I am not aware of any conditions otherwise to the expenditure of those funds. So that is.
Mr. Holmes,
That is
can I
that.
respond to what you said?
Mr. Addis, at the end of the meeting, when speakers can come up again, you can certainly come up again. This is not in the nature of a Q&A, but you can do that when we come back around at the end of the meeting. We will now move to the Bureau of Fire update. Commissioner Wexler?
Yes, thank you. The February Bureau of Fire report received from the Bureau of Fire. The 5 fire companies responded to a total of 55 incidents. 33 of those occurred in Haverford Township. 22 occurred out of township and were considered mutual aid incidents. The average personnel per call was 19.7. There were 1,108 hours of personnel hours committed to these incidents. In addition, there were 764 personnel hours committed to training. During the course of the month, the Bureau of Fire provided mutual aid to 4 working fires within Delaware County and 2 working fires within Lower Merion of Montgomery County. All 5 companies attended a 2-day, 16-hour aggressive incident command training taught by the Combat Ready Fire Training Academy. That was held at the middle school, I believe, I guess. Yeah, oh, in this building. So there were most of the officers attended the second day for their incident command and training. So very busy month for training and fires. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Wexler. Next is Township Auditor update. I know that Mr. Anderson is not here, but yes, go ahead.
Anderson is away for work. He did pass on that he reviewed the warrants and expenditures for this meeting, and he found no irregularities, and all his questions were answered. He did not pass on any comments on Philly sports teams.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for that update, Commissioner Hart. We now move to Mr. Berman's manager update.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time a year ago, the board had adopted a resolution on pay equity. They directed staff, the township manager, to engage a professional third-party anonymized overall compensation analysis that examines equity among specifically civilian, non-union township employees. They also adopted in this resolution that they would establish a task force to review the findings from the compensation analysis and report to the Board of Commissioners the recommendation. And finally, the task force would also review existing policies and procedures that may influence the township's ability to attract, retain, and promote female employees specifically. So we did some work on this. We did engage a third party to perform this anonymized study for us. And the methodology that we followed was specifically steps included a Zoom introduction meeting with township staff who were involved in the study, a job evaluation questionnaire to be completed by all of the subjects of the study, individual interviews with the staff members who were part of the study, and a job evaluation based on level of knowledge, level of complexity, scope of control, context for nature and purpose of the position, and the required education, experience, and physical effort of the position. They performed a great deal of data analysis for us that included looking at the current pay, longevity of individual employees who have been with the township, the position, gender, and what they call job evaluation points, which are based on that job evaluation questionnaire. They performed what's called a linear multivariate regression analysis, and that would help to determine what the best predictors of pay are here in Haverford Township. And so it examines the relationship between a dependent or output variable and a set of independent input variables. And then we followed up with questions that needed clarification with some of the work that had been done. So the findings of the study indicate that those job evaluation points are the biggest predictor of pay for non-union civilian employees in Haverford Township. And what that means is overall, there's no effect of gender on pay here in Haverford Township, even when controlling for years of service and job evaluation level. And so while the data didn't indicate an adverse effect of gender on pay, there were some findings from the multivariate analysis and other observations that revealed some areas that would be appropriate for further examination in the future. So our next steps, as discussed earlier, would be the Commissioner's Personnel Committee and the Township Manager and the Assistant Township Manager would serve on a task force to develop recommendations concerning those policies and procedures that may influence the Township's ability to attract, retain, and promote female employees. And with that, that closes the gender equity study, the gender pay equity study that we completed.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Anything else from the township?
I have nothing further at this
Great.
time.
Thank you. We will now move to approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion for the regular meeting minutes of February 13th.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of February 13th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments or additions or deletions? Hearing none.
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next is the approval of warrants.
Mr. President, motion to approve the following warrant, number 3, 2023, totaling $3,843,163.41. General and Sewer Fund payroll for February 16th, 2023, in the amount of $786,169.42. General and Sewer Fund payroll for March 2nd, 2023, in the amount of $730,647.15. General Fund disbursements, number 3, 2023, in the amount of $1,185,030.93. Sewer Fund disbursements, number 3, 2023, in the amount of $525,437.95. Community Development Block Grant Fund disbursement, number 3, 2023, in the amount of $148,851.38. Capital Projects Fund disbursement, number 3, 2023, in the amount of $108,175.86. American Rescue Plan Fund disbursement, number 3, 2023, in the amount of $350,773.88. Credit card statement ending February 27th, 2023, in the amount of $8,076.94.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none.
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler. Yes. Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next on our agenda is ordinance number P2 of 2023. It's a second reading of a traffic ordinance.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Cavender.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the second reading of ordinance number P2 2023, establishing rescinding traffic restrictions on the following highway, repealing the no parking at any time restrictions on the east side of Panmure Road from College Avenue to Buck Lane, covered, which was added on 12/27/1989 by ordinance number 2065, amended 2/12/1990 by ordinance number 2076.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next on our agenda is ordinance number P3 of 2023. This is the renewal of a lease agreement. It's a second reading.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adopt the second reading of ordinance P3 2023, authorizing a renewal lease agreement with the Hockeytown 19083 LLC, Havertown, Pennsylvania, for a portion of certain property located at 1018 Darby Road, the Stadium, Havertown, Pennsylvania, subject to review by the township solicitor and further subject to the approval of the township manager of the final document.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? It's obviously a second reading. We've discussed this before. Hearing none. Mr. Berman.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty-Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move from ordinances to resolutions. The first resolution for consideration tonight is Resolution 2298 of 2023, Economic Recovery Payment for Senior, Widowed, and Disabled Residents.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Trombetta.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution Number 2298, 2023, approving the American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund for senior, widowed, disabled residents, and further be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Haverford Township hereby adopts the Senior, Widowed, Disabled Residents Individual Economic Recovery Payment Program and Exhibit A of this resolution, and further authorizes the Township Manager and Assistant Township Manager / Finance Director to take all actions necessary to accomplish the stated objectives of this resolution.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I would just make a brief statement on this one. This particular resolution has really kind of had me go back and forth ever since it was brought to our attention. I think that Commissioner Wexler and Commissioner Hart make valid, logical arguments in terms of their position with regard to this resolution. I also think that Commissioner Trombetta and her supporters of this resolution also make equally valid and logical arguments in support of same. I think that at the end of the day, I am going to be supporting this resolution because I think that at the end of the day, when I look at the ARPA funds and what the ARPA funds are meant to be, one of the things that they are meant to do is to help those in disadvantaged communities recover from the effects of COVID. And when I look at this particular resolution, I'm looking beyond just the immediate effects of COVID, which are, for the better part in the rearview mirror. But one thing that's not in the rearview mirror is the inflationary effects that certain government policies have caused as a result of COVID and our government's attempts to deal with COVID. And I feel that those inflationary effects have hurt the targeted community that this resolution looks to benefit disproportionately. And so for those reasons, while I think that there are very valid and logical arguments on both sides, I will be voicing my support for this.
Thank you, Commissioner Gondik. Anybody else?
I too would like to say that I will support this, but I agree with what Bill and Terry have said, and I agree with what Brian said too, but the calls I always get is, how can we help out the seniors in and of this town? And I believe this is a good first step, and we can continue to do more. Not of this, I mean, continue to do more things to help out the seniors.
Don't worry, Commissioner
I
Quinn.
think I meant by that.
Some of us recognize the unique nature of your support here. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on Resolution 2298?
Mr. President.
Commissioner Trombetta.
This has been discussed for 2 months now in work session, but I did want to just make clear for the purposes of this conversation that it is specific to the people who are qualified for this potentially would be people who have already been approved through the state's property tax and rent rebate program. So it's not necessarily for all seniors. It's for our most vulnerable low-income seniors. And I just felt the need to clarify that for the purpose of this conversation. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
No.
Commissioner Wexler.
No.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We move on to Resolution 2302 of 2023. This is a Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, Delaware County paving project.
President, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2302-2023, authorizing the township manager to sign a master agreement for casting adjustments on certain state roads in Haverford Township.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next resolution for consideration is 2303. This would be a Department of Conservation and Natural Resources grant application for the Darby Creek Trail.
Mr. President, motion to adopt resolution number 2303, 2023, authorizing David R. Berman, Township Manager, Secretary, to file application with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources in the amount of $500,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondek.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Next item for consideration, Resolution 2304, 2023. This is a liquor license transfer. Before we go any further, I just will announce that I will have not taken part in any discussions about this other than presiding for part of the meeting last week. I've not discussed this with my colleagues. I have a conflict of interest that prevents me from participating in this item.
Mr. President, motion to adopt resolution number 2304, 2023, that Haverford Township approves by adoption of this resolution the proposed intermunicipal transfer of restaurant liquor license number R 2313 into Haverford Township by Havertown Al Pastor LLC, and be it further resolved that transfers, designations, and assignments of licenses hereunder are subject to approval by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
Second.
Just as for anybody watching, there was a hearing that took place before our work session last week for about an hour, where Havertown Al Pastor LLC presented their case to the Board of Commissioners and explained that they followed all the processes that were required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board to effect this transfer, and now it's before us tonight.
And I would just add that I will be abstaining from the vote on this particular matter because of my involvement with 2 restaurant liquor licenses in Haverford Township.
Thank you, Commissioner Gondik, and thank you, Commissioner McCluskey. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Berman?
Commissioner Gondik.
Abstain.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
I abstain. We move from resolutions now to the awarding of contracts. Our first contract under consideration tonight involves the police department and a professional services contract.
Mr. President, make a motion to authorize professional services contract of Crime Watch Network Core Access from Crime Watch Technologies, York, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $11,357.25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is something that was described in significant detail last week by our chief of police. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move to from contracts to purchases. I have a purchase for the Public Works Department.
Mr. President, make a motion to authorize the purchase of a new diesel fuel engine for a tree bucket truck from Del Val International Truck Incorporated, Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $16,427.95, submitting the lowest responsible bid.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none.
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. President, the second motion for Public Works is to approve the amended authorization to purchase one mainline system Ford Transit TR350 van, Trackstar camera, and inspection truck, HR DeHart & Son, 311 Crown Point Road, Thoroughfare, New Jersey, under CoStar's contract 025-052 in the amount of $267,28.56 from the originally approved cost of $196,399.76.
Second.
And I believe our Director of Public Works is here. He can explain that, or Mr. Berman can.
Dan.
Oh, here it comes.
Dan, you coming up?
Mr. Mariani, why don't you come on up and explain this to us?
Since you're here, you may as well testify.
You might lead off with how, since this is under CoStars, we can be quite sure and quite confident that it's undergone a great.
Yeah, basically, it was just an oversight on my part. The quote sat for about 6 months. When it came time, crunch time to get the budget packet together, I threw it on there without getting a new quote, and just threw it right into the budget. And when it was approved, I sent a PO to HAD Hart, and they said, "Oh no. Basically, it's a highly technological piece of equipment with a lot of cameras and computer system inside there, and it just jumped up quite a bit." So
This is the camera inspections truck that we use for
our sanitary and storm.
The stormwater.
Yeah, so it's well needed. So. Any questions?
This camera saves us a lot of money in the long term. But
Correct. Yeah, and it does. And it does do. We are required to inspect so many feet of sanitary every year, so we're kind of struggling right now.
Is this new camera inspection truck crucial for the delivery of the services that people in Haverford Township have gotten used to from our Public Works Department?
Yes.
What happened to the old one?
It's just outdated. Everything's starting to go bad on it. The computer system's not keeping up. The inspection discs that I have to send over to Pannoni aren't very clear. So this is going to be a whole new piece. We're going to take the original camera that we have now, get that refurbished so we have a backup. So
What is the estimated lifespan for this, the new one that we're buying?
well, it's just like anything else with computers and everything. It changes every couple of years. So I couldn't give you a life expectancy of the actual system inside the truck, but the truck is, probably about 10 years, 12 years. Hopefully. I won't be here.
You say so. Maybe I won't be here either.
12 years? If you are.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments or abuse they want to heap at Mr. Mariani?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mariani.
Could I ask for some clarification? Was this going to be purchased with ARPA funds, or am I misremembering something?
It was originally budgeted, so.
No, it was just out of the general, the sewer budget.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. Our next purchase is the Scadium.
By way of a procedural question, I believe an amendment needs to be made to the verbiage of this motion. Should I incorporate that in what I read, or is that something we should address after the fact?
So, Mr. Gondik, I believe the way that you should go about this is that you should move the original motion. Somebody will send it. You will then amend your own motion, and the person who seconded it will approve the amendment, and then we will consider it.
Thank you. Motion to authorize the purchase of a dual zone split unit system from Boyle Energy, Havertown, PA, in the amount of $11,000, submitting the lowest responsible quote, and to authorize the purchase of a replacement compressor for chiller number 2 from Tustin Group, Norristown, PA, in the amount of $26,399, submitting the lowest responsible quote.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gondik, do you need to amend this motion?
Yes, I believe, and I'm going to ask Ms. Cuthbertson to kind of confirm this or not, but if I'm reading some updated information correctly, this motion needs to be updated to amend the $26,399 price tag to make it $34,000. My understanding is that the original quote did not reflect prevailing wage rate, an adjustment for refrigerant, or the addition of an oil filter dryer.
That is correct. And even with those add-ins, they were still the lowest price we obtained.
What's the new number?
34,000.
34. Mr. Quinn, do you accept that amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we have an amended motion for purchase of a dual zone split unit system from Boyle Energy in the amount of $11,000 and the purchase of a replacement compressor for chiller number 2 from the Tustin Group of Norristown, PA in the amount of $34,000. Both still submitting the lowest responsible quote. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I would just bring up, at the work session, there were some questions about whether these expenditures were in line with our energy audit. And I believe that Ms. Cuthbertson did go back and look into that. With regards to the split unit, I believe our facility superintendent felt that it was basically in accordance with the energy audit in the sense that it was a higher efficiency unit. Is that correct?
It is, and the energy audit specifically said that if that unit was replaced, that it would be replaced with an Energy Star rated product, and the new product is Energy Star rated.
And as with regards to the compressors, while this compressor might not be the most ideal in accordance with the energy audit, It's being done on almost an emergent basis to replace one of 4 total compressors within the chilling system. We're down to a point where with the summer coming and the extra workload on them, if we were not to have this one in place and then one more went down, we would have a significant issue at the stadium. That being said, my understanding is that the entire chilling system is already scheduled to be replaced in 24, 25, although I'm hoping 24. And at that point, the recommendations specifically with regards to any kind of variable speed drives will be incorporated. Is that also correct, Ms. Cuthbertson?
Yes, that is the plan, yes.
Just to clarify those concerns.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
I will be abstaining, Mr. President. I have one of the vendors in this motion is a customer of mine and also related through marriage, so I will abstain, just in the overabundance of caution.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Wexler. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none?
Commissioner Gondik.
Yes.
Commissioner Forresty Grubb.
Yes.
Commissioner McCluskey.
Yes.
Commissioner Cavender.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn.
Yes.
Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Wexler.
Abstain.
Commissioner Trombetta.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Yes. We now move to the next item on our agenda, next series of items, which are appointments. I will entertain a motion to postpone these appointments.
Make the motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion to table. We have a second. Any questions or comments? Think we can do a table by voice vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Indeed. Okay. We now return to a continuation of Citizens Forum for non-agenda items. If there is anybody to the left here who would like to say anything, yes, Mr. Hall. I will, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Hall, just, we do try to confine, I've let people go beyond the rigid 3-minute limit, but I still would like you to confine your comments as you can. Oh, whatever you need.
So I'm here this evening to speak on that. There are commissioners here who are candidates on a local political party's website. And that same party put out a newsletter that stated that people are speaking in public comment. They're spreading misinformation. They're obstructing progressive policies. Sorry, should I begin again? Was that not on?
What happened?
Okay, sure. So I'm here to
Yeah,
speak on the fact that there are candidates here that are up for a re-election. They're listed on a local political party's website. And that same party put out a newsletter that said that people are speaking in public meetings, spreading misinformation, obstructing progressive policies, intimidating local officials. It said that they're spreading chaos and confusion, making nonsense and noise, and it's a fringe group of right-wing extremists. The idea of it being a group I find interesting. There were points made in public comment earlier this evening that I agree with. I've never met the people before. A lot of the points made in public comment are about safety. They're made about fiscal responsibility. I reached out to my commissioner, and I appreciate her response. It was very thoughtful and well written out. But I'm very concerned about this, so I bring it to all of your attention through this method as well. This type of activity is not welcoming, inclusive. It's not diverse. It's a faulty analysis. So I feel that anyone who has an affiliation with this group should be concerned about the message that's being sent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Anybody else on the left? And to the right. Mr. Addis?
To beat a dead horse, Commissioner Holmes, I found your response, I appreciated you made one, but I found it completely unconvincing. I have never been involved or seen projects where there isn't efforts to fully understand, to follow, to inform other agencies that will be involved in something like this to gain their understanding, to gauge their interest, et cetera, et cetera. So I found your response, I appreciated you made one, completely underwhelming. I will respect the 2 or 3 minutes and just say a couple more things. I would beseech you to reopen and do a thorough due diligence, to have the buildings that I referenced, one of them basically empty. I went by there tonight, completely dark, that being the former municipal building, the school, that those interesting ideas have not been considered. When I asked people at the library about this, they said, well, we can't be involved in that. That can't be considered because we're the library. That's a different department. Again, not very entrepreneurial, not innovative, etc. We're talking about $20 million. That's a lot of money for this town. No new books. We're talking about space for teenagers, space for community meetings. I have no idea why that has to be formally at the library. I understand the operating costs. Would there be incremental operating costs? But clearly, there are a lot of innovative things that could be done. One last point I would make. I was a intimate acquaintance of the former Commissioner Andy Lewis. I don't know what his final vote was, but you or one other commented on this building. I know that for the longest time, I don't know what his final vote was, Commissioner Lewis opposed the building of this building, didn't think it was necessary in this town. A tremendous amount of money was spent building this building. I didn't think it was necessary. It got built. It is what it is. I would beseech this town again to be thoughtful and to be much better stewards of our money. I'm a lover of books. I spend 4 or 5 hours reading, recently retired. Go to the Ludington Library every week. We have other libraries around us. We should be efficient, innovative, think through what we're trying to accomplish and not be so cavalier with $20 million of the citizens of this town's money. And the final comment I'd make, I made it earlier, I'll make it again. I am discouraged by the apathy of my neighbors. I don't mean just the literal neighbors I talk to, but the broader community who know virtually nothing about this library. Now, I don't blame you for that, you, the commissioners specifically. But when there will be outrage later, I can assure you, when people find out if it's passed, $20 million, it was 12 before, there's soft costs that are incremental, etc. People are going to be stunned when they hear this kind of number at this time in this community with the financial stresses and strains that are going on. So again, I'd ask you to do a much more thorough due diligence and be innovative. I thank you for your time.
Honest, thank you. Anybody on the right side of the room like to speak? Oh, yes.
Yeah, Major Peterson, Derwin Drive, U.S. Army retired. Yeah, I'd like to read you something from a note that was found in a trash can several weeks later. Our landings on the Cherbourg-Harvard area have failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I've withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack at this time and place were based upon the best information available, and the troops, the air, the Navy, did all the bravery and devotion to duty could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone. July 5. Now, that was a note that was found in a trash can several weeks later when General Eisenhower was cleaning out his uniform. He threw it in a trash can, and it was a colonel who picked it up out of the trash can, looked at it, thought it might be of some significance. And so he retrieved it. I believe it's now in one of the Eisenhower libraries. But I want to bring up this note because of the level of leadership that this note displays. General Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, took full responsibility for the D-Day invasion. an invasion that probably saved Western Europe. He prepared this note the day before, even though he dated it July 5, before the invasion, just in case the, I guess, the unthinkable were to occur. Now, I know that General Eisenhower would later go on into politics, and he wasn't a politician when he was a general, not officially, but I'm sure he had a lot of other egos that he had to persuade in his direction. But in the political world, maybe we're not used to seeing this type of leadership. Leadership where when something bad happens in your administration, you accept full responsibility for that, and you don't blame the previous administration, even though you've been president for 2 years now. So when it's a SVB bank failure that you could have done something from your initial day in office, I'm sure there are many executive orders that Mr. Biden has approved, or legislation when you had both the House and the Senate. And yet we have this bank calamity of SVB. Whether it's the East Palestine train incident, as the NTSB has said, it was an overheated bearing. It had nothing to do with any legislation that was not passed for braking. So the long and short of it is, I think we need to hold our politicians to a higher level of leadership and higher level of accountability. And I think that's what we should be asking both parties, no matter which administration, to display greater leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anybody in the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll now move to new business. Is there any new business to bring before this board?
Yes, I just wanted to bring up one thing. You guys knew that I was going to do this, but
Is this other or is this new?
This is new. This is
Okay.
this is about just a quick little thing about the 10-cent fee for the brown bags. Because I know that there's some stores, and I get why the 10-cent fee was put in there, but there's some stores where they always did give you brown bags, and that's all that they did. But now they're having to charge a fee, and some are upset about that. So I just wanted to get some clarification on that, just so when I get asked about it, I can ease their stress.
Oh, so
It's not really anything to vote on or anything. It's just I wanted to bring this up now rather than wait till they're. So if anybody had the answers to it.
is there anybody who would like to address the particular part of the plastic bag ordinance that addresses and I guess requires businesses that provide paper, I guess that's biodegradable bags, to be provided and charge customers a dime a bag?
Yes, Mr. President.
I shouldn't say dime bag, sorry. 10 cents a bag.
Just to respond to my colleagues' questions, when the Environmental Advisory Committee first proposed the language of the plastic reduction ordinance, they talked about this 10-cent minimum fee. And what their best recommendation to us after researching numerous other municipalities and locations where they had passed this ordinance before was that we include a minimum bag fee so as to offset the costs of our businesses. So this is actually really supposed to be a business-friendly model. And they essentially recommended this, indicating that if you put some kind of minimum fee, that the businesses will be way less likely to protest a plastic reduction ordinance. And that was pretty much what we found. At least, if this Board of Commissioners meeting is any indication, or the emails that I received is any indication. So that was why we did it. You know, there's your answer. Thanks.
Thanks for your help. I just wanted to be able to go back to them, because there are some that have always served or have always used the brown bag. So they asked me that, and I just wanted to give them some more info. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that issue? I guess I would also say this. I certainly wouldn't want to discourage any businesses that are doing this now, and they can certainly, to the extent that anybody feels like now their customers are disadvantaged or anything like that, they can certainly take other pricing things into account. I'm old enough to remember that we didn't have plastic bags. We had paper bags. Supermarkets just cooked paper bags into the cost of groceries, and you got 4 or 5 paper bags, and then you used them to cover your books every September. And those are obviously so much more environmentally friendly. They can be reused out of 100% recycled products. They can be recycled, reused, repurposed. So I think of this plastic bag ordinance as a step toward a society that's more environmentally conscious. So is this something we'll never change? No. What would be great is just if behaviors change and expectations change, and then we can adjust the ordinances, appropriately. But, at each step of the way, I think we have to have the discipline to stick it out for a while, see if it has the intended consequence, see if it creates unintended consequences, look at those, consider them seriously. But that doesn't make the businesses that have talked to you, that doesn't make them wrong, and doesn't make their issues any less significant. So I do appreciate you bringing them up. That's just, that would be my approach to it. It's just for us to have the patience and discipline to see how this works. It just started. Any other questions or comments? Any other new business anybody would like to raise with the court? I'm sorry, with the board. That said, we'll move on to other business. I will start with Commissioner Gondik.
Just a brief couple things. One, start off by wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. The Westgate, as for announcements, the Westgate Hills Civic Association is holding their Easter in the Park on Sunday, April the 2nd, from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. There'll be snacks for the kids, an Easter egg hunt with prizes, and pictures with the Easter Bunny. So if you happen to be around, hopefully we'll get good weather. Please feel free to bring the family and come on down to the park on that day. The only other thing I would say is a couple days ago, I had the pleasure of doing a walk of the park with Brian Barrett and some members of the Civic Association, and we did take a tour of the entire property and made some notes on some things that are going to be cleaned up and addressed this spring, whether it be landscaping or some maintenance, replacing and repairing some of the kids' equipment. So I would just simply say, if anyone has any questions about what's going on, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to be sending out an email with more details also shortly. But if you start seeing some playground equipment disappearing, fear not, it will be replaced by new equipment. And that's about it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Gondik. Commissioner Forster-Grubb.
Speaking in terms of the parks, I am pleased to say that the ADA ramp has finally finished construction in Ward 2. So the Lanark School has got an ADA compliant ramp, so anyone who would like to push a stroller up that ramp and then go into the playground, it is ready as the warmer weather approaches and we have longer daylight hours. So that's something for us all to look forward to. The other thing I would like to say, the other day I was driving to work and I was behind one of Haverford Township sanitation trucks. And I was very aware that they were doing their very best to try and get traffic around the sanitation truck as it stopped to pick up all the, the containers and the men. And it was truck number 22 on Manoa Road going down toward Karakung. Were so nice to make sure that me and everybody else could get around safely. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all the sanitation teams who come and collect our trash and our recycling 3 days a week. That means that they walk roughly, and I thank our township manager for these figures, roughly 66 miles a week to take care of everything that we put out on the curb. And I just wanted to say thank you, and to also ask that if you're behind that garbage truck and you're feeling a little impatient, just think about the 66 miles that each one of those guys on the back of the truck put in. I would also like to say thank you to Mary Gay Scanlon for bringing a check to help us offset, to be give us a small part of the money that will be required to renovate and expand the library, which really is the jewel of our township, I believe personally. I think it is the place that everyone goes, no matter what their learning needs or their community needs, and it's open to everybody. And I'm very proud that we're undertaking this project, which has been under discussion for many, many years. I was looking at an article from October 4th, 2016, saying that commissioners had tentatively agreed to let the Haverford Township Library set up temporary headquarters at the old administrative building. So we've been talking about this for a long time, and it is very exciting to see it finally come into the near future. So thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Forster-Grubb. Commissioner McCluskey.
Yeah, some good news. Many people saw the security footage from the accident that happened a couple months ago at Bacella's Deli on Eagle Road. And thankfully there was property damage, but no one was injured. And the good news to report is that the parking lot has been full all week because people are buying cheesesteaks and hoagies, and it's open for business. So welcome back to a real staple for Eagle Road and a staple in the Haverford business community. And again, just reiterate how glad we are that no one was injured in that incident, and sort of amazing, or seriously injured, I should say. But glad it's reopened. Spring is upon us. The clocks went forward this week. I say it every year. If you are driving down a residential street and you are going 25 miles an hour, I guarantee you the parents in the yards along that residential street think that you are flying. So just be considerate of what you're doing when you're driving down residential streets as the weather warms and kids are out on bikes and playing all sorts of games and everything. And just be considerate of your neighbors and that we're all living in this community together. We talked briefly about the bag ban, and I know a lot of people, when they had questions about it, there's some news that Radnor and Tredyffrin are both instituting their own version of the ban this week. So it'll be more consistent throughout our surrounding areas. And again, also just thank you to Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon for coming tonight, and certainly the $2 million is going to be put to great use in this library that we're renovating and expanding and really building something that I think at the end of the day the community is going to be very proud of. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner McCluskey. Commissioner Cavender.
Thank you. I want to join my colleagues in thanking Mary Gay Scanlon for coming and presenting the check for the library, and just echo my excitement for this project and belief that we are building something we can be proud of. Thinking back to, I believe it was July or August, Chief Viola and Dave Berman and I and Joe Hagan went down to Brynford at one of the intersections down there, and we listened to neighbors talk about a lot of the questions they had, frustrations with speeding. One of the things that came up that was really important was parking. And so I want to thank you for coming up with an effective solution to return or add, I guess, 35 plus new parking spots on Panmure by opening that up to parking. So I appreciate that kind of problem solving. It's helpful to the neighbors, and you all are really good at it. So a couple of things coming up in April. We have a 5K race for the library on the 22nd. The Twilight Run, it's fun, and normally there's a sort of activities afterwards. There's a fun run, 1 mile. The Andy Lewis 5K is the next day on the 23rd. It's starting and ending at the Creek. The funds raised go to Discover Haverford, so I encourage anybody to sponsor, to help support the cause. I also want to thank Jake Swan for coming to speak on behalf of Brynford Civic Association. I applaud their decision to create a task force to work with the township. I'm looking forward to meeting with them next week and sort of make sure that we have that open and transparent communication that neighbors want and that we're responsible for. This is a real opportunity, and I've talked about it a lot. I won't belabor it, but I'm really heartened by the work we've been able to do. The last thing I want to say is thank you, Dave Berman, for conducting the wage equity study. This is important because you were able to take this study that was very targeted and look at how it could have the broadest impact on the most people. And that's responsibly using our funds, and I appreciate that. That money that goes into people's pockets matters. It goes into our local economy, and it has an impact. So thank you for your work, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavender. Commissioner Quinn.
Okay, I just wanted to say a few things. The Mighty Mojo Run is Saturday, Saturday, April 8th, and you can go on to mightymojo.org, I believe, for more of the info about that. The Kevin Kane 5K is a Sunday on April 16th, and that's always a good run for the community. It's always great to see the community come out, and you can go to kevinkane.org to find out more about that race too. And last month there was a cop who was shot and killed in a really terrible way, and you just seeing what that cop went through and his wife and kids, and you think about our cops and you think about all of the other cops and what they do every day for us to keep us safe. So I know that death got to a lot of us. So I know that was hard to watch, and the other thing is St. Patrick's Day is soon, and I suggest everybody will be Ubering to make the police lives easier. And if you have a lot to drink, don't come up to me and scream at me about things, please. So, and the other thing about that is for anybody that observes Lent, you can eat meat this Friday because we've been because there's a dispensation that was granted, so that's good to know. And one more little quiz thing is back in 2003, a long time ago, when I walked into my first meeting here, not here at the old place, there were 3 women on the board then. So I don't think a lot of people knew that, and it's good to see there's 3 on the board now when I serve, and I think that's great. And I think everybody should be allowed to speak. I think that's a big thing when we want everybody to come and to let us know the job that we've all been doing. If you like us or if you don't like what we're doing, it's good to have your voice heard. And I don't want I don't want anybody to ever be scared to get up here, but I ask you to be respectful, and I think everybody has when they come up to speak. But I just wanted to put that out there. And one more thing is trash. We always see trash because it seems like there's only wind on trash days, so we always see everything flying around. So if you see if I see anything, please pick up the trash because I think we always see it on our streets. So thank you all, and I think that's the most I've spoken all my years on this board. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinn. Commissioner Hart.
President, congratulations to the Haverford High School girls basketball team, who, despite losing in the state tournament, did go undefeated in their regular season and league playoffs and won the Central League title this year. They finished their season 27-2. And congratulations should also go to the Haverford boys team, which also qualified for the state tournament, which I believe was for the third consecutive year, despite being a vertically challenged team. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hart. Commissioner Wexler.
Yes, thank you. I'll also offer my congratulations to the girls' basketball team. It was quite a season for them. Carolyn Dotsey scored her 1,000th point at one of the tournaments. They just played an outstanding season. I was fortunate enough to see them 3 or 4 times this year, and they had a great team. So congratulations to them. Also, the Hilltop Civic Association has a meeting this Thursday night for the planning. I'd ask anybody to volunteer. It's going to be online. If you go to their Facebook page, you can get the Google Meet information to join them for the planning committee. They're in desperate need of volunteers this year for the Easter egg hunt and 4th of July information and, parade and the fall and Halloween events. So if anybody's out there, if you're new to the area, please go online on Facebook, the Hilltop Civic Association, and join their meeting and help with their planning for that. It'd be great. Also, people have called me. The survey has been ongoing at Beaumont and Glendale for the traffic improvements down there, the improvements to the intersection. There were guys in yellow vests down there all week, or the last 2 weeks, completing the surveys for PennDOT's project and to improve that intersection, square it off, and get the decision on how they're going to improve that intersection. So that's going on. Also, Little League is going to kick off on April 1st. There's a couple parades. All the leagues kick off, so you'll see kids riding their bikes to the fields. So just be cognizant of that and go enjoy a baseball game. And also, I'll offer my same as Connor. Be careful on St. Patrick's Day. It's Friday. It's going to be a great night. Everybody in the township will be Irish that day, I hope, and we'll go there. And also, I'd like to offer my thank you to Congressman Scanlon for the $2 million. Every little bit helps. And the last thing is Saturday, March 25th, we have a township shredding event here at the Township Municipal Building from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. So that's March 25th, Saturday from 8 to 11, a township shredding event. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Wexler. Commissioner Trombetta.
I'll be short and sweet. If you'd like to learn about rain gardens on March 18th, 2023, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., the Haverford Environmental Advisory Committee, the Darby Creek Valley Association, and the Eastern Valley County Stormwater Collaborative, and Have a Rain Garden are organizing a training where you can learn about how to create your own rain garden in your property. And honestly, everybody else said a number of things, so I'll just pass it on. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Trombetta. Quickly, I would invite anybody in the 6th Ward interested in serving as the 6th Ward representative of the Senior Advisory Committee to please let me know your interest, and I will appoint you to that board. We did postpone this month our final appointments to our boards because we still have to schedule interviews, which we will do sometime in the next several weeks and take up those considerations in April. I do want to personally thank Congresswoman Scanlon and her quite efficient and excellent staff for making arrangements for tonight to happen. It's one thing for us to talk about trying to get grants and trying to do what we can to fundraise. It's another for our representative in Washington to walk in the door with a $2 million check. It helps significantly with what we're trying to do with this library. And Congresswoman Scanlon has many constituents with many needs, and we in Haverford feel very special and very honored that we were able to make the cut. So I appreciate her work and the work of her staff. With that, tomorrow is March 14th. Happy Pi Day for all of you geeks out there. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.